Good evening, everyone. I'm Carol Fitzgerald from Reading Group Guides, a website from the Book Report Network, and the host of the Book Reporter Talks to Video podcast series. And we are so excited to have you with us this evening. Welcome to our 41st Bookaccino Live Book Group event. 41st. Can't believe we started doing this like years ago. And we've kept it up because we love meeting readers this way and we love being able to bring authors to you. Our guest this evening is Lily King, and we will be talking about her latest novel, Heart the Lover, which was an instant New York Times bestseller, a number one indie next pick, an Apple Best Book of the Month, and one of my Book Reporter Bets On selections. And just today, I saw that it is number one on the small press bestseller list, and Writers and Lovers is number six. So I think that speaks volumes as to all these months later, this is what Lily's book is still bringing readers to. And I just remember I devoured it within a day. Probably shouldn't tell her that because she worked on it a lot longer than that. But I devoured it in a day because I just loved seeing how the story came together and all of the surprises that I had along the way as well. So this is great to see this book still seeing this kind of sales happening 5 months after the book comes out. Our book reporter reviewer, Eileen Zimmerman Nicole, had this to say about it. If you crave a book that will transport you to another world and play your heartstrings like a lute, then I highly recommend you pick up Heart the Lover. So the format for this evening is going to be as follows. And let me start that we're going to note that we're assuming that everyone has read the book. This is not the kind of book book club became just for the wine. This kind of book club, we're going to talk spoilers and everything. So just know we warned you up front. I'm going to start out with a couple of questions for Lily and then eight readers. And we're really excited because we've got people from all across the country are going to be joining us live to ask some questions about Heart the Lover. And then we're going to take questions from the audience. So if you have questions, if you drop them into the Q&A down below, best place to put them. Tom Donadio, our editorial director, will be down there looking for questions and making sure they're not duplicates of things that we've already answered throughout the evening. And once again, in the chat, just let us know who you are, where you're from. And we're not going to look in the chat for questions, though. So just know if there are any questions, we're not going there. So with that housekeeping behind us, let's welcome Lily to the stage. Welcome.
Hi,
And you are joining us from, tell us from
I from Mexico, from San Miguel de Allende, actually.
where she's on vacation and taking time to be with us. And we really appreciate that, you know? So, when I talked to you about this book, like I think it was back in like October, and I was fangirling about the book because I loved it absolutely so much. There's this love triangle that happens so much in young love. And my book club actually read this book. We got together, and one of the women said to me this line that was so great. Remember when everything was so important when you were in college? Like the most
Mhm.
important thing was who you were in love with. And then if you're going to break up, what was going to happen? And you start out with this great triangle at this really pivotal time in people's lives. So let's start out with like what drew you to do that right from the beginning?
I just the idea kind of came, the whole really arc of the story came all at once to me. And so as soon as I knew, I mean, probably maybe part three came first, and then I knew I had to go back in time, and that I had to build this world and then make that big leap from their 20s to their 50s, and and so I knew we would return, and I knew I wanted it to be a big love affair, that big love that you don't end up staying with, but that has a huge impact, on your whole life. And if you're lucky, you somehow stay friends, or you don't lose them completely. And I wanted, I mean, it's so funny. I'm so used to not talking about spoilers. And so I'm very vague about part three, but you're saying that I can actually say the word
Yes,
hospital.
yes.
And, I really, I wanted to explore that kind of thing because, I'm in an age where I've had a number of losses, and um, I just I think each one is so different and so powerful, and these moments in the hospital are so varied, and I wanted to capture the way people come together after so many years, and I just found it interesting, and I wanted to follow this woman's arc, this her kind of emotional arc of her life.
It's like raw, deep emotion. Was I was thinking. Like raw,
Yeah.
deep emotion at the beginning, raw, deep emotion at the end on a totally different level. But
Yeah, exactly.
but you're in that hospital and you're thinking about everything in between. You're thinking about like all those memories while you're standing there at the end. And it's what did they all mean?
Yeah, and I mean, what I was really interested in is this woman whose past is suddenly like the present. It's kind of the past is really coming up into her present, but she's also a mother, and she has a sick child at home, and she has a lot of responsibilities, and she's just trying to juggle everything. And I was interested in that because I think that that's kind of a woman's life, in a lot of ways. You're handling a lot of stuff at once, and I wanted to capture that in this
Yeah.
sort of very intense way.
And how you're sorting it out with the memories of what happened before. And how do people change? How do they change their roles? What's their role along the way? I think it was really interesting. Debbie Moore is going to join us. She's been a part of most, if not all, of our book group discussions, and
Oh,
she's joining us from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Sometimes she's up freezing up in Syracuse, but she's very wise and goes south in the winter. So welcome, Debbie. So great to see you, like always.
Yeah, it's great to see you too. Lily, I loved your book, and like
thank you.
Carol, I read it in one afternoon. We in January, at the end of January, we had 6 inches of snow in Myrtle Beach, and they don't know what to do with 6 inches of snow, but it was couldn't go out, so it was the perfect time to
Oh my
sit and
God.
read a book.
Oh, that's
So,
great.
um,
Nice.
I love the first line in the book. You knew I'd write a book about you someday. And that sort of like set the whole tone for the story.
Mhm.
Did that line come to you
Thank
at
you.
the very beginning, or did it come toward the end?
Yeah, that's a great question. It did not come at the beginning. Usually, my beginnings are they usually stay the same. They're often the first thing that I've written, and in this case, that wasn't true. I'd written many of the college scenes, and then it came to me, and I didn't really know what to do with it, and it floated around. I actually was looking up something for an interview today, and I saw an old draft, and I had it kind of at the beginning. I didn't know what to do with it. I had at the beginning of the third part, and the second part didn't even exist at that draft when I was looking at. And so, and then I it floated around. And then when my editor saw it for the first time, saw a draft of the novel, full, complete, quite polished draft, it didn't exist. I had taken it out. I thought it was one of those things that I really liked, but I couldn't find a place for it. And I thought, oh, maybe this is a kill your darlings moment. Which I've never really subscribed to. I never kill my darlings. I do everything I can to keep my darlings in the book. But I left that out. And then when I did a revision for her, I put it back in, and I decided to put it at the beginning. And she was like, what is this? She was so happy. She really, really loved it. So I was like, okay, it's in the right place now.
Yeah, I loved it.
Oh, thank you.
Why did you have Sam and Yash name the narrator, Jordan, and not reveal her real name until the end? And why did you reveal her real name at the end?
Well, when I started writing the book, I had no idea that this was a character that I had written about before. I didn't realize it was Casey from Writers and Lovers. And um, she didn't have a name. She was just an unnamed first person narrator. And then I knew, as I said, I knew that we would make this big leap into the future. And I knew she would have a husband. And so when I was writing those very first scenes, I took a note in the back. I write by hand. And so I took a note in the back of my spiral notebook, and I meant to write her husband, blah, blah, blah. But instead of writing her husband, I wrote Silas, da 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 da. And I stared at the page and I looked at that name, Silas. I'm like, well, if she's married to Silas, that means she's Casey. And so then I wasn't sure, was that a good idea? Was that a bad idea? I'd never written about characters. I never returned to characters in my life before. And so I wasn't 100% on it, but I kept going. And then there was this scene with Ivan where, he asked her, why haven't we seen you around? And she's like, well, I was on the golf team. And so then I was like, okay, well, we're Casey now if she's on the golf team. And then they nicknamed her Jordan, because from The Great Gatsby, Jordan Baker is the one who plays golf. And I don't know. It's funny because Casey is nicknamed by her dad in Writers and Lovers. Her real name is Camilla. And so she's given this nickname. And then she's given this other nickname by another man. And it sticks just for this, when you're called something just for a time in your life among a few different people. Mm-hmm. I just wanted it to be her name for them. But because the novel is only with them, we use it a lot. I mean, she's always called that. And then finally, when she's with her husband, then he calls her Casey. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It just kind of, it sort of happened organically, and it wasn't I didn't have any forethought on that.
At the end of the book, when Jordan struggles with the decision, does she go and see Yash first? Does she go to the hospital with her son first?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was a great struggle coming from the perspective of a mother, and just how do you make that decision? Was that something that, you just said you wrote the third part first. Was that something that came to you right away? Why was that struggle so important to you, to the story?
Yeah, I didn't write the third part first, but I did have the idea for it first. And the third part is a long story. It took me a long time to figure out how to make that work. And basically what happened is I wrote all the college scenes and the post-college scenes, until he dumps her, basically. And then I wrote all the hospital stuff. And the hospital stuff is the stuff that I really wanted to get to. But when I read it over, what I'd written, and I had the son be sick, and she did need to be home, but I didn't really have like the timing with the surgery and all that kind of stuff. That wasn't quite there yet, but I read it over and I was like, oh, this is kind of flat. There needs to be more tension. So I increased the tension at home and the need to get home and then go with the family to Houston for the operation. And I kept on trying to tighten that. I kept on reading over the third part, and it kept on being flat. And it was really a problem. And I did draft after draft, and I showed it to my editor, and she also felt like, well, it does kind of drag a little bit. And so then she thought, well, she needs to have a conversation with Sam, maybe get her to leave the hospital for a while. And I was like, I just don't think that's going to work. And then my husband, I'd kept on telling my husband all year, that this third part was kind of flat. And I couldn't quite make it work. And he kept on telling me, she needs to go to the hospital with a secret. And I kept on saying, there is no secret. Stop telling me that. Stop telling me that. And he got it from like a screenwriter's book on plot and structure and, tricks of the trade kind of thing. And so 12 days before I had to deliver the novel, before, it was going into production, I just sat on the couch. I'd read it over again, and my husband was like, "What is wrong?" And I was like, I can't make it work." And he looked at me and was like, "She needs to have a secret." And I looked at him, and I was just like enraged, but also desperate. And I said, "Fine." And I went into my study, and I opened up the last page of the first section where she shows up at Carson's door, and I change 5 lines, and I make her pregnant. And then I call that draft pregnant version. And then I literally had 12 days or 11 days really by then to revise the entire thing. Like, I'm not revise, like I had to write section 2, which didn't exist before then. And then I had to have flashbacks to her mom and to adoption. And then I had to go into the hospital stuff. And it changed everything about why she was there, the questions they had for each other. And it just like added this engine to the third part that third part so desperately needed. And so then yes, there was still the tension that she had to be with her son, the night before he had his surgery. But she kept on delaying because she knew that she had to tell Yash before he died about this child. And so that was, it added a lot for the book, but she was always going to be there for the surgery. She just kept on delaying, getting home before it. And then, so.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I absolutely love the story.
Oh, thank you, Debbie, so much for reading it.
And I love that cover. Whoever designed that cover.
It's gorgeous.
It's really good,
wonderful.
isn't it?
It's just gorgeous. Let's see if I can get it to do the right angle without the light. There we go. Like the daisies, you're getting it?
The tears.
Yeah, and it's a play on The Great Gatsby.
Yes.
The iconic Great Gatsby cover has the eyes and the tear. We went through about 30 covers and we finally landed on this at the very, very last moment. So brilliant.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Debbie, for joining us. And I love that story about the 12 days. I was telling them before, we're going to have to get her to tell the story of how the whole book changed. It was really Morgan's going to join us from San Francisco. There you are.
Hi, Lily. Thanks for being here. I absolutely loved your book so much. And
thank you.
I feel like that scene in the airport at the end and on the plane, I'll never forget that. That is one of those like gut-wrenching scenes that I will carry with me. It's unbelievable. Anyway,
thank you.
I feel like you've kind of already answered my question, but I'll ask it anyway. I said one of the strengths is the narrow focus and your ability to move from one period of time to another quickly and seemingly effortlessly. And by the end, the intimacy that we experience with the narrator as she navigates the airport, it's so profound and gut-wrenching, and it feels so deeply internal. And I feel like that's partly a result of really careful plotting and narrowing and cutting and that kind of thing. So I don't know, but my question is, did you have the plot and the characters first, and did you plan for the death ahead of time? Did you sort of write the plot first, then write the scenes, and how did you find your structure? And I feel like you've already kind of answered that. But how can one carve out just the right amount of material to make a great novel? How do you apply that skill?
Oh, wow. Those are big, big questions. I always knew that Yash was going to die. I knew that was the end of the story, and I knew that's where we had to get. And I really dreaded writing that. I didn't really want to be in that hospital and go through those scenes, and I knew it was going to be really painful to do. And so I thought that the beginning part would be short and kind of a quick backstory, and then we'd get to the hospital. But I think I found myself delaying and like really spending time in college and after college because I think I was dragging my feet a little bit to get to the hospital parts. But I did know I had to go there. The ending took a long time to get right. I really pulled out my hair for a long time. I had one moment where I went off on a writing retreat with a friend of mine just an hour north, and we were both writing novels, and I was trying to write the end, and I wrote 30 pages set in Iceland. It was the most psychotic writing I have ever done in my life. It was so, at the time I thought I was onto something, but afterwards I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we can't use any of that. It was ridiculous. But was really feeling my way, I had weird things happen on the airplane. I just and then slowly I realized, okay, it doesn't have to be that complicated. You know, she just has to get to Houston. And and then one of my favorite scenes is the escalator scene. You know, when she comes down the escalator and Silas is there. Like that moved me so much. And it took me a long time to find that, you know, and I really, I mean, for all the people who are writers out there, you have to stay really open until the very, very end. You know, even when the book is about to go into production, you just kind of have to stay open to what all the possibilities. And I really feel like that the structure of the ending came to me very slowly, and at the last minute. But I was really, really glad it did. And then the three-part structure, you know, as I said, I didn't have that. I had a little tiny prologue where Yash is there and her kids are climbing a tree with him. And that was about 3 pages. They don't go throw stones on the beach. They don't go back home. Just 3 pages. And that was like a little prologue. And then we go back to college and then we go to the hospital room. But I didn't really like it. I didn't think it worked, that was the intro to the book. But I don't know. I felt some sort of obligation to have something that wasn't college right at the start. And so I really felt my way along to the structure. And I think that's also an important thing to realize, is that it doesn't come to you all at once. It comes to you very slowly and in pieces sometimes. And you just have to take it as it comes and really have the patience and the trust in the process. And there are moments where you just completely don't trust the process anymore. But it does, you know, if you have the patience, it does come to you eventually.
Staying in the moment long enough.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Thanks for the question. Angela Grassi is going to join us from Malvern, Pennsylvania. And go ahead, take it away, Angela.
Okay, I love the book. I have it right here.
Oh,
I just
you.
finished it on Sunday and I savored it. I didn't want to rush through it. Really wanted to just really savor it. And then I looked up your Instagram page and saw that you were doing this event with Carol
Aw.
today. So I was really excited. So
Hey.
one of the last paragraphs in your novel says he will be okay. She's talking about her son.
Mhm.
I don't know where this thought comes from me or from Silas, from Yash or my mother. It just comes to me and it feels like an actual possibility.
Mm.
And this resonated so much with me because I was sick with the worst worry with my then 8-month-old son, who
Mhm.
ironically we thought was going to need brain surgery and just, you know, the worst. And we were in the hospital, and at one point he was taken down for a CAT scan. And I just had this wave of peace come over me, and just this knowing that he was going to be okay. And I
Wow.
believed it with my whole heart, and he was.
Oh,
And my question for you, did you experience something similar in your own life? And if so, where do you think it came from?
yeah. Well, I'm so glad your son is okay. That is the most terrifying thing I can possibly imagine. Um, I, you know, am lucky enough not to have had something that like what Jordan Casey experiences in this book with her son. But when I was writing this book, I did have one of my daughters was very sick with Lyme disease for about 5 years, and I was kind of in the middle of that while I from when I started writing this book, and I knew I needed to have a sick child because I just was grappling with those feelings and I needed to put them somewhere. Um, and uh, I really struggled with those questions and with anxiety. I mean, I had to go see a therapist just to I felt like I didn't have a cushion anymore for my anxiety. You know, I remember going to the therapist and being like, I usually have, like, I have worries, but there's like this cushion that I land on and it's okay. And I had no cushion anymore. And I really felt like, can we build up a cushion again? And so, I feel like part of that cushion is, I've never had what you had, the experience of like this peace coming over me. I feel like I had to convince myself in various moments that it was going to be okay. I also, this is an aside. My younger daughter, kind of right around this time. I mean, this is such a weird little thing, and I'll try to keep it really short. But she lived in New York City at the time, and she was given a new roommate. She had this weird apartment where the landlord got to choose who her roommate was, and so her roommate left, and the landlord got another roommate. My daughter was 22, and the roommate that the landlord got was a sniper. I choke up just telling this. He was a very, very nice guy, but the first thing I heard was that he had done a couple of tours in Iraq as a sniper. And I was really scared, like super scared. And I had a friend who was in Al-Anon, and she said, you know, in Al-Anon, we say, what if it's all okay? And I called her up and we had a walk at like 7 a.m. in the freezing cold several years ago. She lives in my neighborhood. And she told me this, like, what if it's going to be okay? What if it's all okay? And she said that, and it was like the anxiety was like, what if it is okay? Like, why am I making this into, you know, a terrifying thing? And he did end up being a very, very sweet, nice guy. But she was so young and it was so out of my control, and my anxiety was already through the roof with my other daughter. So anyway, this is a long answer of just saying, you know, I try to tell myself, what if it's all okay? And I think that's where that came from in that book, was that experience.
Thank you.
That makes a lot of sense. That's where it came from. It really does. Angela, thanks for a great question, for sharing your own experience too. You know, I will say that when our book group met about this book, the one thing that everybody talked about, and they're all younger than I am. I always love this. They're like 20 years younger than I am, and they all have young kids. And we always have book group at my house, so nobody has to clean the house because I only live with my husband and my older son. So we go and we have them come over here. And we had the biggest discussion about, do you go with your child or do you go to the hospital with Yash? We were going back and forth on this. It was probably the biggest part of the discussion we had. And this one girl was going, I just couldn't not go to the hospital with my child. Like, how do you do this? And we just went round and round and round. And it was really interesting to hear, like, you know, where you're saying that you have to say it is okay. I felt it was okay. It was a really interesting way to say, maybe that's what we have to think a lot more of. Instead of thinking the worst, think the better.
Yeah. I struggle with that. I have an imagination, and it, you know, likes to imagine negative things.
I can get pretty far down the pike of where we are. My husband looks at me and goes, what's going on? What's happening here? They're going skiing, you know, Colorado, you know, you've done it. So Annabelle is going to join us from San Francisco. Annabelle Sosa is joining us from San Francisco. And I believe she's in her car as she's joining us.
I am. I was in my room and now I'm in my car. I'm driving safely.
Good.
But it's good to meet you. I'm so excited. A good friend of mine last night at our writing group told me that this is happening, and we were both kind of geeking out over your book. Yeah, and I also ended up hosting it for my new book club. And I'm a journalist, but I'm trying to practice my fiction writing, and there's so much inspiration I've drawn from this book, and I'm reading Writers and Lovers now. So I'm invested. And I just need to know, and I've listened to other interviews you've done, and no one's asked you this, at least from what I've heard, how much of your lived experience is Casey's? I know someone asked about the health components, but how much of like your young love life was that of Casey?
You know, it's so hard to answer that question. I mean, I definitely had a big college love, and I didn't marry him. And I feel like maybe he broke my heart, I broke his heart, kind of at different times. and um, and in 2019, I had two big kind of formative loves who both died a month apart from each other in different cities, both of cancer. And so those deaths were definitely on my mind when I was writing this novel. So at the same time, these characters, these scenes, all the dialogue, the baby, like all that stuff. There's so much of it is fiction. But what I would say is that I've had those emotions, in writers, and the same within Writers and Lovers. I mean, her situation was different from mine. My mom died actually 10 years ago tomorrow. And so I had her in my 20s, 30s, 40s, and some of my 50s. But I was a broke young writer, and I lived in Cambridge for one part of writing my first novel. And I did have this funny time where I was dating three guys at the same time, after a lot of like a parched period. And then suddenly, and I always find that very funny. I find that it never comes out like, one at a time. I feel like there's nothing and then there's a lot. And so I experienced all those things too. But it's really the emotions. When I sit down to write about those emotions, I have to pull in so much fiction. Otherwise, I'm just not a nonfiction writer. I find when I write autobiographically, it's very flat. And so I need to have the fun of my imagination at play. But these two books in particular, I mean, they're certainly more autobiographical than like Euphoria or The English Teacher or The Pleasing Hour, and Father of the Rain was kind of half. I would say the first third, the first part of Father of the Rain was very autobiographical, and then, although with a lot of fictional elements certainly thrown in, but then it shifts into a lot of fiction. So I always say, it's like I have a big Yahtzee cup, and I have my experiences. I have stuff that I've read. I've had stuff that I've heard. I have my imagination. And it all kind of goes in, and like every novel is like a big roll of various components, different combination of all of those things. Does that help?
Completely, yes. Yeah. I would imagine, I'm not surprised that those emotions were ones that you felt. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I just wish you so much luck on your writing, and stick with it. Don't give up. Trust the process.
Okay. We'll try.
Remember, you can go write about Iceland. You can go for 10 days, write about Iceland, and come back and still finish the novel. It's okay. Allow yourself.
True.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good luck, Annabelle.
Ariella Nazar Rosen from New York City is here now. And she shared her question. She noted that Casey resonated with her as a fellow creative. So, Ariella, take it away.
Hi, Lily. Thank you so much for being here and for this immense gift of a novel. Oh my goodness. I called my mom after I finished, and I was like, Mom, I'm not okay. I'm feeling so much. And Oh, I was reclining. I really just lost it. But as Carol mentioned in my question, I'm a creative, but a theater maker and actor. But I was an English major. I'm in my early 30s, and I studied just outside of Boston at Wellesley College. And so there were so many facets of this that I connected with. And I know you mentioned that initially you hadn't planned on returning to Casey, but when you realized that that's the direction that you were going in, I guess I was curious, what became some things maybe that you wanted us to know about her that we didn't see fully the first time around? I know that I keep thinking of the last line, that you're here, and that really resonates, like the sense of the awareness of the present, and it's referenced throughout, the past and the future, as those different moments, and then this really instantaneous moment. And but anyway, I wasn't articulating that well, but just I was really curious what you wanted to show us about her this time around.
Yeah, it's funny. She just kind of came to me, and I wasn't really thinking in advance, this is how I want her to be. It's almost like I'm exploring her as well. And so I was really glad on a later draft. Actually, I have a writing group, and one of the women in a dear friend of mine in my writers group said that she felt like I didn't explore kind of how she was feeling about writing in college. Like, that last semester when she did the honors thing, she was like, so like, who was her professor? What was she writing? Da, da, da. And so that's when I came up with Professor Felsky, who was like the mentor I always wish I had, and who kind of led her into a whole new reading experience, with female writers that she'd never read before, and kind of a different kind of attention to her writing. And so I was really glad. It's more like I didn't mean to show everybody, but I was just really glad to stumble upon that and get that advice so that I could write that section. So I was really, in Writers and Lovers, we see her as a writer writing her first novel. But here we see her just at a much more formative stage. And I was really glad to have the opportunity to write about that and show that. And I think it was really important for me to show her how she got her first heartbreak, because I think these first heartbreaks are the thing that open up your heart, and allow you to really appreciate love when it comes along. And before you've really had your heart broken, you don't see how precious it is to be loved and to love, and so I was glad to kind of show that moment too. And then I loved writing the middle part where she has children, young children, before Jack gets sick, and showing the family and bringing her past back in and having them play Sir Hinkum Funny Buster again. I just, I don't know. Again, I was just glad to be there and experience that and sort of see what she was like for myself. And then so readers could see as well,
Thank you. And my second question is, what you kind of alluded to it before about your writing process. And I was curious that, if it may have changed this time around after you realized that there would be a thread to Writers and Lovers, or do you have a typical process and way that you write that you kind of stick through, no matter what novel you've worked on?
Yeah, the questions are always different. The puzzle, it's a different puzzle. But I would say my method is pretty much the same each time, which is I really just start with a situation and an emotion. I kind of know where a character is emotionally, and I have a sense that there are a couple of people around, in some way or another. And then I often have a sense of a little bit of the arc, the emotional arc that I want her to go on, and roughly where I want her to land, kind of, but really emotionally, not physically. And so I kind of start off playing around, like writing a couple of the first scene and seeing how it feels. And I do that in a spiral notebook with a pencil. It has to be that way. And I always, in the back of that notebook, I always have 20 pages that are blank for notes. And so I kind of start in, and then once I start, I get ideas. And sometimes I already have some notes on the idea, and all the notes go into the back of the book. And if I'm in the shower, if I'm waking up in the morning, writing a note, I transcribe it all into the back of the book. So I usually have all these notes. And then when the notes get really crazy, I often create a timeline, which is kind of a weird thing, where I just have a piece of paper. Sometimes I stick two pieces of paper together and I write a line across, and then I have like little tiny things that are going to happen, but it kind of helps me, like what was next and what was next. And they usually they're the most minor little things, like she gets a job at blah, 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 or I don't know. I remember in Euphoria, it was a big thing to get to the point where he gives her his dead brother's glasses. They're little moments, but they're important to me. And then I have to figure out what happens in between the moments, and so that really is essential. I usually go through about 3 notebooks, and at some point I start typing in, which is really a revision process for me, as I'm kind of putting it in the computer, but I'm also revising. And I really like writing by hand because I can write notes in the margins and I can see all my crossouts. I don't use an eraser, even though I use a pencil. I just kind of can see what I've written before, and it's just different. My writing is different than on a computer. On a computer, it's a little more subject verb. I feel like the sentences are shorter. And so then I put it all in, from time to time. When I'm a little stuck, sometimes I'll go back and kind of remember what happened, because when I sit down to write every day, I do not go back and read all that I've written before, or even I try to read just like a page or a paragraph of what I wrote the day before, because I just want to keep moving it forward. But sometimes I lose the thread. I'm like, okay, I need to kind of reconnect with the material. So then I put it into the computer. And then I just keep going until it's all on the computer. And then I print it out and I read it. I try to read it like a reader and not like a writer, and see what's wrong with it and take notes in the margins. And sometimes I have to write a whole new scenes, and there's always a scene that I dreaded writing and I didn't write, and it's clear that I need to write that scene. And so, I do that. And then I just do draft after draft. And then finally I show it to my husband, and then to my writers group, and then to my agent, and then to my editor. It's kind of the way it goes. And that all usually takes between 3 and 5 years.
Oh my gosh. Well, you make it seem effortless. So thank you. Thank you so much, Lily. Thank you for this book and for being here.
Oh, thank you, Ariella, so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ariella. I've just to interject one thing about college. Okay. So we're all in college, right? And you have these people that you've met like over these 4 years, and then their parents come to school and you meet their parents, and you're like, whoa, like I did not see that coming. And wow, whoa, didn't see that relationship coming. And I will never forget that couple of days before graduation when the families are coming into town and you're just looking at everybody going, I had no idea. I was dating him and I could have ended up there. No, that was not going to be a good move. You know what I mean? Because you're in You're in this bubble. We joke
That's
that
so true.
they could have a no shoes, no socks relationship because we're all living in the same building, and you're never going to have that again. And there's that night before school that you realize you're never going to be with all these people living in the same place again. There's no episode of Friends. Like it's not going to happen like that. This
Right.
is what you do. Very, very interesting moment. So
Yeah, that's so true.
meeting the parents, though, meeting the parents.
Yeah.
Caitlin Milliken is going to join us from Milton, Delaware. Hi,
Hi,
Caitlin.
Lily. It's great to be
Hi.
here tonight. I actually had the opportunity to read an advanced reader's copy of Heart the Lover, and it quickly became one of my favorite books of last year.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Even your background characters have such depth and presence. How do you go about your process of characterization?
Most of the time, they just come out on the page. I don't do any prep work or anything like that. I have a sense of who they might be, and then it's really through their dialogue that I come to know them. And so I just kind of see what they say, and but sometimes I can get stuck on a character, and they don't come to me, and they're an important character, and I have to figure out something to do. And so I have a little trick that I use, like with my characters in Euphoria. I felt like they were all in their 30s, and I needed to know them better. And so I wrote an autobiography for each one of them. And I've done this before for other characters. And I do it all on my computer, which is very rare. It's not something that I do handwritten. It's completely separate from the novel I'm writing. But when I'm stuck on really not understanding who the character is, I create a file on my computer and I write, I was born. And then I just go from there. And it's like this stream of consciousness, like uh, just blurting, single spaced, many paged. I was born, and I go from the moment they were born in their voice to the moment the book starts. And so I have this like sense now of who they are. And that's really how I find out. Like I write fiction to find out who my characters are. I don't cerebrally plan them in advance. I can only do it kind of through their voice. And so when I'm not getting them, then I make this sort of first person document where then I understand who they are, who their parents were, what was happening, like crucial moments in their life. And then a lot of that stuff usually ends up coming into the book eventually.
And do you do that for the main characters only, or have you done that for background characters as well?
I've done that I did that the first time I did it was in my first novel for a character named Nicole. And the main character was named Rosie, and she was working for this woman who was like this ice cold bitch. And I couldn't figure out why she was like that. And so I just went back into her childhood. And, it was like during World War II. And I was like, oh, I was so surprised about what I found there. And it really altered the book in the end.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for asking.
Annette from Scottsdale, Arizona is going to join us now.
Hi there. Thanks, Lily. This has been really, really great. Learning so much.
Thank you.
But the memories that this book has brought up with me being in college and reminiscing, it's been so much fun the last few months, just remembering this person and all of the experience I had. It just has brought up some really great memories. But my main thing is I love to play board games. I love to play card games, and we have game night, and I love it. So when I read how the Heart the Lover all became the title, I was wondering, what was your inspiration in developing the card game that created Heart the Lover?
Well, it's an actual game that friends of mine taught us when our kids were little, and so. And it's a game that it's called Sir Hinkum Funny Buster. I asked their permission if I could use it in my book, and it's my friend Joss. It's a long story, but I had this old boyfriend, who introduced me to his college roommate named Joss, and Joss's girlfriend, Electa. And they became lifelong friends of mine. And so we raised our kids together, and they taught us this game. But Joss's dad taught him, and Joss's dad's dad taught him. His name was Poppy, they called him. And so they were playing this game, I think, through the 1900s. I mean, like from 1900 on. And Electa actually found it online, and it was originally a board game in the 1870s or something, called Sir Hinckley Funny Duster. And but it was very similar, but it seems like someone along the line translated that game into a card game. And we have always loved it as a family. And so when I had these college kids playing, I was, I think they played spades maybe for the first time. But I wanted them to play something different. I didn't want it to be just a game that everybody played in college. And so I thought of Sir Hinckley Funny Buster. And then, there was Heart the Lover, and then they used Heart the Lover, in the note, and then it just kind of Heart the Lover kept on coming up, and then I realized, and then it kind of made the short list for the titles. But I really didn't think I should call a novel Heart the Lover. I mean, that just seemed absurd. And in fact, like a story that I tell is that my younger daughter Eloise. Well, we're all on a family chat together, a group chat. And so I texted the group chat saying, I think I might call this new novel Heart the Lover. And Eloise wrote back immediately. She said, Mom, you cannot do that. You will destroy your career if you call this book Heart the Lover. And so I tried really hard to find a different title, but I didn't come up with one. So it stuck.
Oh, it's what intrigued me to read the book was I'm like, what could this book be about? The cover and all of that. So when I got to the part where it explains what I thought, oh man, this is I loved it. I thought it was I think it's a great title.
I'm so glad. I love card games too, so much. And I have them all the time in my books. My editor is always like, oh my God, another card game.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for joining us in it. It's really funny because I miss playing card games. I miss things like that we used to do.
Yeah.
You've also maybe want to go back to school. You maybe want to go back and sit in some English class, which I probably would get a lot more out of than just trying to get a grade. I think that's a really good thing to be doing right now.
I know. I'd like to go back to school too.
Seriously, what I missed? What I missed being there because I was in the moment of getting a grade or writing a paper or this, but was I listening? Not so sure.
Yeah.
You got me. Lisa Wallace is joining us from Wethersfield, Connecticut. Now, I love this. We're really across the country.
We are everywhere all at once. And again, Lily, thank you so much for being here. I'm not going to repeat what everyone else said. We just loved the book. Our book club was, we had a great discussion on this on Tuesday. So one of the things that I would love to know is if you were a member of a book group who is going to read both Heart the Lover and Writers and Lovers, which order would you suggest that they be read? Because they could be read in either order.
I know. I think I would start with Writers and Lovers just because there are less spoilers that way. Because Writers and Lovers is just that 1 year or maybe not even a year of her life. And I think, because of Silas, I think it's good to read Writers and Lovers first because you don't know who she's going to choose,
Yeah, we went round and round with that one.
Yeah. I know, because you can make a case. I know I've heard people make the case that you should read Heart the Lover first.
Yeah, either way, they're both fantastic novels. So
anybody who hasn't read the other, it's time for you to go read Writers and Lovers and say
really
that's the way you should do it. Okay, we can agree on that tonight, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Tom, our Voice of God editorial director, do you have questions for Lily?
Yes, we do have some good questions here. First question is from Roseanne. She wants to know, why wasn't there more about Jack, his diagnosis, and his surgery?
That's a that's a fair question. Um, I I just it was not my focus point of the novel. I really wanted to keep it very much trained on Yash and Sam and Jordan, in all three parts. And that was the story I was trying to tell. And I wanted there to be this tension with her in the hospital and her needing to be in two places at once. And so I just I initially I wasn't even going to have her really family life in it at all. And then I had to put it in. And so I just put in kind of the bare minimum. And that's just the way I saw it. I can't really, I can't really, I don't know, make any more of a case for it, except that these were my interests. I was really just trying to stay on this relationship with Yash and Yash and Sam. I mean, I think that friendship was a huge part of why I wrote the book, is that I really wanted to examine and celebrate, this male friendship that lasts for so many decades. And I just kind of needed the family in a certain way, but I wasn't gonna, I never planned to really expand that.
Right, just was never really the focus
Yeah.
of the story. Yeah. Betsy asks, how do you understand pacing? It seems to me that you know exactly when to give backstory and when to skip ahead from one scene to the next. What helps guide you around time and pacing in a novel?
Oh, thank you very much. Pacing is so important. I feel like it's many drafts. I don't think I get the pacing right away. Sometimes I cut off too soon. I err on the side of writing too little, and so often I have to add more. And I really try, once I write, I really try to read it like a reader. I have very strong opinions as a reader, and so I try to make sure that this is a book, this is a scene, that I would like, and that I wouldn't want to go on for too long, or this is transition that I would be excited by, as a reader, and it does take me many drafts to kind of get that right and make that feel okay. Yeah, I think have I answered the entire question? Did I forget something?
No, I think you answered it. You answered every part. Yes, absolutely. Barbara wants to know, are your books strictly from your imagination, or do you have to do any research?
Oh, sometimes I have to do a lot of research. In this case, the research was the medical stuff about her son Jack. Although I know I didn't write a lot about it. I did have to do a lot to just get a little in there. And I met with a friend for lunch who's a doctor, and I picked his brain entirely. And I said, these are all the symptoms. These are the things, what's wrong with him? So we came up with something. But then I had to do a lot of online research that was mostly very scary. And like for Euphoria, I did a ton of, I did, probably a year of research, really. I was writing another novel at the same time, so it wasn't, full time. But I did a lot of reading for that. And I love research. This new book that I'm planning to write is really research heavy. I don't like to put a lot of research in the novel, but I have to do a lot just to squeeze out just a few drops that seem natural. I'm always trying to make it not look like I've done research. That it just kind of, I would never want the reader to feel like, okay, you really were fascinated by that, and now you have to give me a whole long paragraph about that. I really don't like, I don't like seeing research in novels very much, although I like learning about all kinds of things, but I need it to feel organic to the story. And so for this book, for Writers and Lovers and for Heart the Lover, every now and then I had to, maybe research a little bit about Paris, certainly about Paris and their interests, and I researched things about writers, and so there was some, but not heavy. Like right now I have this big notebook of stuff that I'm digging into, and it's going to take a long time to sort through that.
I'm sure it is a big challenge to, going through all that research and just, like you said, yeah, making sure that it's not, okay, this is everything I've learned about this trip that I was on or what I've learned, and to integrate that into the story and to make it seamless is definitely, I'm sure, something that you have to keep working on.
Yeah. And what's great, what I really love about research is when you stumble on this little tiny little detail, and then suddenly, even in my research notebook, I'm like writing scene and dialogue. I'm already putting it into a fictional moment, and that is really exciting for me. And that's kind of how I kind of work it in that way.
Now, Lisa has a fun question. She says, in Writers and Lovers, one of your characters drives a Renault Le Car. I drove one in high school. It was a beloved car. When I read your book, I was delighted to see the Le Car resurrected. Did you ever drive one?
Yes, my stepsister had a Le Car, and she taught me stick shift on it. And so I have very, very fond memories of Le Car. And it would cracked us all up. I mean, it was just such a freaking funny name for a car.
It's the first time I'm hearing about this.
Yeah.
And they were kind of great cars. They were very fun, sporty. Cheap.
Pam said, I read this wonderful book as an audiobook. Can you talk about what audio versions do to expand the reading experience? Have you listened to the audio, and did you participate in the selection of the narrator?
I did participate in the selection of the narrator. As I recall, they gave me a few options. This is in my recollection. I could be corrected, but they gave me a few options, and I went and I listened to many more, and came up with Rebecca Lowman. I really, really, really thought she would be perfect. And I can't listen to my audiobooks. When they come out, I listen to about a half a page, but I can't, because I will want to start revising. I start hearing no. It's basically what happens, and I want to change it all. And so I can't listen to my own audiobooks, but I love audiobooks, and I listen to them all the time, and find them so pleasurable. Oftentimes, though, if a book is really, really well written and I'm listening on audio, I have to switch, because I have to see the words on the page. If the prose is just, almost too good for audio, I need to have both at that point.
I'm going to jump in a question here. Because of audio becoming such a big format, do you read your book aloud at any point just to hear, do I say that word too much? Is the cadence there? Do you do that at all? Because I've heard a number of authors saying that all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I just said that word like 10 times, or I'm hearing it 10 times and the sound isn't right.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't really, to me, have anything to do with audio. Like, that I want it to sound in people's heads, the right way. And so I often read things out loud. And very, I do not like repeating words. I don't want any of that happening, even if people are reading it to themselves, because there is, even when you read to yourself, there's a rhythm and a musicality to it. And And it's really important to me to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ellie wants to know, is Casey your favorite character, or do you have a least favorite character?
Oh, of all my books, gosh, I don't know. I mean, right now, just because Casey and I have, we've been together a lot this fall and winter, and she's been with me for 2 books. I do feel probably closest to her. I don't know about favorites. That's really tricky. I mean, I think if I had to say, I think probably Silas of all my characters, maybe my most favorite. But yeah, I've never thought about that before.
A dinner party with your characters.
Yeah. I'd want to go with Silas. I would want to sit next to Silas.
That's what you want to do.
I love him.
With a dinner party, what would they bring?
And Judith wants to know if there is any chance that there will be a future story involving the adopted daughter.
Oh, I have been asked that before. I am not seeing that, but I never say never at this point with these people. They might pop up again in some way.
But you didn't see the pregnancy either for a while.
No, exactly. Exactly. So we'll see.
And those are actually all the questions in the Q&A.
Okay.
Wow. Fantastic. Those were all good questions. We had a great I like the live questions. I like the audience questions. Really terrific, everybody. And Tom, thanks for breaking those out.
No problem. And actually, I have one more late breaking question that just
late breaking.
From Brittany. She says, do you have any rituals you perform before you sit down to write? Is there something you light, music you put on, windows you open, etc.? And this is Brittany from Tokyo.
Oh.
So we have someone from Tokyo.
Thank
Brittany.
you, Brittany from Tokyo. My big ritual is just a cup of black tea with milk. And so I make a really strong cup of tea. It's usually Assam is kind of my favorite kind. And then I put some whole milk in it. And for me, like that, if I ever drink black tea, I want to write. Like it is like a trigger, Pavlovian response that I have. And that's kind of my biggest trick. And I kind of write on a full stomach. Like I have to have breakfast, and it usually has to be eggs. I have this idea that eggs are brain food. I don't know if that's true, but I don't know, it sticks in my stomach longer, so I don't have to leave to go get something else to eat for a while. And the tea can, settle in with the eggs. And that is really, really pretty much it. I don't do anything else. If I'm really stuck, I'm not even necessarily if I'm really stuck. Sometimes I'll write in my journal first. Sometimes, just to kind of get going. I might read a little bit. If I'm really stuck, then I will just be like, okay, this is a morning where I'm going to drink tea and I'm going to read a book. And I'm not even going to put any pressure on myself. And then that will put me in the mood to write. And then I'll be writing within the hour.
There's no sitting down and praying first. No, please.
Yeah.
Please bring some words today. See,
yeah, exactly.
This is kind of a secret for your editor and your agent, because if things are slowed down, the black tea, there will be a gift coming towards your home. Make sure you don't need to leave the house and go buy it. It's like, here, it's got it ready. Go for it.
Exactly.
By the way, I do have a lot of eggs, so I'm hoping that it is a brain food, because that would be a really good thing.
Oh my gosh.
And there is one more question from Maureen. What about Heart the Lover are you most proud of?
Ooh.
Oh gosh. What about it? I think I'm just proud that I got to that end and that I found it, and that I feel like I waded through so many wrong turns to get there, that I feel most proud that like I stuck with it. I did not give up. I did not freak out. And like I saw my way through it, you know.
I feel like you stuck the landing. You stuck the
Yeah.
landing. If we're going to go on an ice skating thing right now, you stuck the landing. It was there.
Yeah, well, you know, there are a few bad landings, let me tell you. Crash landings before, but that one I did.
Pulls it out. Pulls it out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. This has meant a lot to us. It's meant a lot to our readers. Really, really enjoyed having you. And thank you for taking your time on vacation to spend time with us as well.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
all
Lily.
so much. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone. This is really, really fun.
So we're ready for the next thing. Whenever the next thing comes, we will be wanting to work with you and do this again. I just want to
Excellent.
put on the calendar. Okay.
Thank you
you
all so
so
much for
much.
reading. Thank you.
And
Bye.
Bye-bye. And
Bye.
everybody else, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, we had good questions. We had great audience questions. We had great audience questions live. We had great audience questions that Tom shared with us. We really love this. And we've got a couple announcements of what's going on in the future from us. First of all, tonight's event will be available on YouTube and our podcast tomorrow, we hope, either that or a little bit soon afterwards, and we'll alert you all when it's live. And we have an events page on our TBR Network site where you can sign up for all of our programs. We have 4 that are coming up. Patrick Ryan is going to be joining us on Wednesday, March 25th at 8 o'clock for a Bookaccino Live book group to discuss his New York Times bestseller, Buckeye, which was also a Book Reporter Bets On selection. And you can sign up for that now. And before then, we have this thing we call Bookaccino Live Book Preview that we developed during the summer of 2020. I know there are a lot of new people here tonight. And we decided nobody could get to a bookstore, nobody could get to a library. So we were going to say, like, what can we do for them? So we created a slide presentation online. A book's coming out the next 4 weeks and 2 months later. And it has become now a tradition that we've been doing for over 5 years. And we do it on Wednesday afternoon, second Wednesday of the month at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we talk about books that are coming. And it's just one of those traditions that's stayed on, and hundreds of people join us. And once again, the video of that is available later. And the following week on Wednesday, March 18th at 8 o'clock, we're going to do our Bookaccino Live Spring Preview event. That's for everybody who works during the day and can't cheat and come watch Bookaccino Live. We're going to be talking about a number of books coming out this spring that we think that you'll be enjoying reading, and you can sign up for that now too. And today, just as we were getting ready to do this event, we got word that Laura Dave will be joining us for a Bookaccino Live book group on Wednesday, April 29th at 8 o'clock. And we're going to talk about The First Time I Saw Him, which is the sequel to The Last Thing He Told Me. And we're going to talk about the second season of The Last Thing He Told Me. I just want you to know I have to read all these words because she can do this. I watched her do an event and she was talking about all her books and they all have these long like phrases in them and she could do them off the top of her head. I have to read. So that show will be wrapping up its last week on Apple about that time. And so anybody wants to catch up watching the show, reading the book, you have time to do it. And we thought that that'd be really fun for, the timing for that. So sign up for our events at the Book Report Network newsletter so you never miss an event. And a reminder, we have more than 240 Book Reporter Talks to author interviews available on our YouTube channel, including a prior interview that I did with Lily, which we did, I think was back in late October or November, probably November. And you can get that at our YouTube channel, the Book Report Network, or wherever you listen to podcasts, it's Book Reporter Talks to. And I want to thank you all for joining us and being part of this very special evening. And thank you for your time. Thank you for being such a great part of hearing what was going on and joining in the conversation. We loved having 8 people with us live tonight. It made it even more interesting to be able to bring people on. And of course, a lot goes out to Lily for being such a special part of taking time on vacation to be with us. So to everybody, and from Tom Donadio, our editorial director, and myself, good night, and we'll see you next time.